Meta in gacha games was and still is a really complicated topic that people are always talking about with any gacha game. And in any gacha game, you will always find that one problem in the meta. So today we will examine gacha games, 3 of them will be our main talking point, and see if we can find the right way to make meta good in a gacha game. Maybe some games are destroying themselves, or a game that decides to twist it and fix the whole thing. Which, by the way, have you heard of the hit game Blue Archive? Well, me too, and this video is sponsored by Blue Archive. Blue Archive is a mobile RPG gacha game. You take on the role of Sensei, an advisor of the Federal Investigation Club, where you resolve the endless incidents that occur in the Academy City. This is one of the most popular gacha games in the world, and especially in Japan and Korea. It has achieved the top spot in sales in Japan multiple times, and it actually has a TV anime airing. You battle with 3D cute chibi characters with detailed animations and skill cutscenes that will keep you glued to the screen. And I'm actually currently playing the game, and it's so fun. The game keeps updating content every time, and currently there are new events and new content coming soon. You can get a skin for the character Hina or a dress, and currently the 3-star chance are getting doubled. So you'll have more chance to recruit more characters, and these events will start from the 13th of July to the 5th of August. Make sure to click on the link in the description and pin comment to download Blue Archive now. So the 3 games will be Genshin, Honkai Star Rail, and Tower Fantasy. First off, let's go with Genshin. And Genshin Impact has one of the most interesting routes in terms of meta, and you will know why after I talk about the other games. So the Genshin meta was overall balanced from the start until Fontaine. They released some OP characters from the start, having a big Ganyu, Zhongli, Hu Tao, the Raiden Shogun, very powerful 4-star characters like Bennett and Xianling, and the more characters they add with the game, they rarely add a back character. For example, they made Ayaka, and the comparisons between Ayaka and Ganyu are always there, although the difference wasn't that big. There's comparisons between Yoimiya and Hu Tao, there's no big difference too. And sometimes they make a character mid, and they buff the character enough to be there in the meta. So the meta was like that for years. Power creep wasn't really a thing. Of course, we saw some insanely powerful supports like Kazuha, but we also had Nahida. So the good points about this meta is that it makes you have the ability to use any character that you like with really not caring much about the meta. And instead of pulling for the meta only, now you pull more for the gameplay and the strategies that the character give you. And of course the character design. So what Hoyoverse had to do is make a new character with greater gameplay or new gameplay mechanics that make this character work without really power creeping things. Now I want you to remember how this meta was, because there is a twist in this video. I want you to hold up with Genshin, with Fontaine and potentially Natlan, because before we talk about that, let's go to Honkai Star Rail. Now Honkai Star Rail's meta is very different. At the start, Honkai Star Rail was doing a little by little power creep. So they make a character, after 2 or 3 patches, there's a new character of the same role that has like 10% more damage or 10% more value, 20% sometimes. Now what's good about this is that Honkai Star Rail makes you have another reason compared to Genshin Impact to get a new character. You get this character to make your account better because the content in the game is getting harder and harder with the time. Combine that with cool abilities and animations and of course design. If we look at it from business perspective, this character has more potential to sell more. Honkai Star Rail did outsell Genshin a lot, and it's outselling Genshin now. So what Genshin Impact did is start following the Honkai Star Rail route in 4.0 in Fontaine. We had new Valette topping off any other Hydro character by a whole margin, becoming the best main DPS in the game. And then straight up we get a Furina, outscaling any other support because she does damage and support better than them. They gave her a very powerful kit that you cannot resist getting her. Earlier I said Hu Tao and Yoimiya, but Arlecchino blows him out of the game. Clorand also was a very powerful electro damage dealer, but there is still differences between Genshin and HSR because Genshin wasn't getting harder with the time. Sure, the Abyss was getting some changes, but it wasn't that hard for older characters to clear it. But going back to HSR instead of just adding more powerful characters, they also added dedicated modes for characters that are probably mid or any other role overall. all. And that was a big W for HSR for a long time, for almost a year. The simulated universe, the pure fiction, they were adding more and more content while making it a little more harder and making characters that got power crept go to another mode. People didn't complain much, the characters were very fun and everything was still good. And now I know that you want me to talk about Firefly and Acheron for having an absurd amount of damage, because when these characters came out, a lot of people started seeing some problems with the meta. But what if I tell you they are not the problem actually? And it's not about the modes. There's one character that everybody should know that started changing everything with the game. Ruan Mate. This character changed the game forever. And that's the first mistake that a lot of gachas do. A broken support. Not only that, they kinda made the new characters also centered around Ruan Mate. You can also see that these powerful characters, or the characters that you call power creep the game, also work with Ruan Mate. They kinda need Ruan Mate. So the new characters can use Ruan Mate, but some of the older ones won't be able to. So a character like Zila, for example, now is kinda having some hard time in the game. She still of course can clear the content, but it's way harder compared to the others. And then we started to see another flaw. You cannot nerf characters. Like, come on, we all know that you cannot do that, you know? People who spent money on a character that is so powerful and then they find it being nerfed, so the damage numbers in gacha games are only going up because they can buff characters. That's the difference. They do that by adding more and more pets and also supports that can make older characters shine again. For example, if we talk about Sparkle, she made Imbiber Lune way better and got him back in the meta. And that's the way they can fix it, by adding new characters and new set that can make older characters better. And we will still get more and more power creep and fix it with new supports or new DPSs to work with older supports too. So this loop is still the best in terms of business, because you will always sell with new characters. You either get a character to buff your old characters or get a new character because it's just stronger. But from a player's perspective, this is kinda annoying. The reason is this is a gacha game and people do pull on characters that they like. Of course, a lot of people care about meta, but you also want to get a character that you like. And if this character is not that good anymore and you have to get another character that you didn't even consider, it gets a little annoying. And even if they are fixing old characters, they're not fixing it the best way possible. They're not top tier characters anymore. They just work to have the ability to at least clear the content, but nowhere near as the others. To make you understand how Hoyoverse does this, they don't care about older characters that much. They start making a new character that is better and better, make new modes working for this character, and as long as the other characters can clear the content, they don't care. And by clear, I can say that the new character can clear it in 1 turn, while the others can clear it in 10 turns. And to Hoyoverse, this is still a clear, but they only start looking at them when they actually don't clear content anymore. And then they add a support that brings them back to the meta to probably clear in 5 turns, for example. They will never be as good as the new characters, but they will go back better than before, and with more time they will come back to the 10th turn, and at some point they will need to be replaced. You will have a brand new team. So yes, this is the strategy that makes more money, but it's kind of not holding the players really, because frustration currently isn't as big as we think, but it's getting bigger. So Hoyoverse needs to be careful in making older characters still viable. And not only that, the most important thing for this system to work is for the game to be generous. You need to be able to pull one of the 2 characters that they add in every single update. And to be honest, we are seeing HSR giving like 120 pulls per patch, 110, so it's pretty close, but it might need a little more now. But there is a reason why there is a 3rd game in this video, and not only a 3rd game, we're actually talking about more than that. But let's start with Tower Fantasy. What Tower Fantasy went with is that every single new character will be a little more powerful, like 10%. There's a little power creep, but if you get 1 star of this character, there will be a little bit more. And in this game, it's a little easy to get dupes of the other characters. So this is another thing affecting the meta with the gacha system. And Tower Fantasy went with this. New characters are kinda better, but this only mattered in 1 or 2 modes in the end game. In the rest of the modes you actually could clear with any character you wanted. And they stayed with this until 2.3 when they made a character called Fenrir. This stupid character was so insanely powerful that you only needed to get 1 star or 1 dupe, which is very easy to get in Tower Fantasy. And the content was getting a little harder by the time, and you kinda needed the character or you're really missing out. The character literally does so much damage. She gets a whole new ability at C1, and if you use this ability you do an insane amount of damage. It doesn't even compare to C0, and you also heal yourself. That's without talking about the other dupes that makes her invincible and things like that. So the devs were like, well shit, we have to fix this. And players were so frustrated with power creep in Tower Fantasy. And the formula that they went with is that they added a new type of gear. For example, if you have artifacts in Genshin, they, for example, added a 6-star artifact. Because the modes were very hard for free-to-plays, they made a new type of gear that makes everyone way powerful. Everybody became very powerful in terms of gear, but when we thought that this was fixed, we remembered that this is an MMO, so you need people to play with you, and whales were crushing everything. So Tower Fantasy had a good idea to fix this. You already know that I said that you cannot nerf a character in a game, right? In a separate server where you start again, and that was what people called ToF 2 at the time. I am sure a lot of people heard of Tower Fantasy 2. That was basically a more hardcore server with harder content with zero difference between the characters. If you want the game to be harder and play with any character that you like, and whales having only 30% difference between them and free-to-play was an insane idea, but it didn't even get to global yet. It got to CN at least like 5 months ago. But of course people are upset that they will start again from the start without characters. What about the money that we spent on the initial server? And that's why it's always flawed. Whenever you try to find a solution, you will find a problem in gacha games in terms of meta. If we look to Zenless Zone 0 now, of course this is the first update, limited characters are very powerful. And in Wuthering Waves, in 2 patches, we actually don't know exactly. I actually don't know how exactly Wuthering Waves is trying to go. Because Jinse is more powerful than Jian, and then we got Shanli, which is as powerful as Jian, so it's kinda looking good, no insane power creep, and this will take me back to Genshin Impact. Why is Genshin Impact the most interesting one in them? Because what could Genshin do is stay on the same thing that they did from 1.0 to 3.0 with adding more endgame. That was the problem in Genshin. No one complained about the meta, they only probably complained about some dendro things. And what game can this interesting way of handling the meta can work? Wuthering Waves. Because you can make the bosses as hard as you can, and people will still clear it with Shisia. But also they can go the Honkai Star Rail route because it makes more money. But of course, as I said before, the Honkai Star Rail route makes you need to be generous and has another good thing, which is if a new player comes to the game, he will already get the best character. So the game will always attract new players, but also if power creep didn't exist anyway, the player can get whatever he wants. So as you see, there's always a problem. There's a difference. You cannot really say which one is the best. You can say that this is better from a business perspective, but you cannot say if this is really the best thing. Even if you follow the Genshin route from the start, they really need to make an insane story to make you hooked to this character, and also always make the gameplay of a new character very impressive. They can do that for 10, 20, 30 characters, but then they will start adding things that already existed. How can you ask a game like League of Legends to add a brand new character that doesn't have any single ability that looks like any other character when they have almost 200 characters in it? And see, even this has a flaw. That's the reason why Genshin changed. Anyway, I think I yapped for a long time. I don't know, I'm actually enjoying making these videos. Please consider liking this video, and if you don't subscribe now, you're gonna lose your 50-50. Bye bye!